And again, you might have one program, multiple activities, multiple programs. You get to pick what happens here. But the above the line and below the line process is kind of similar. So you'll notice some correlation. The first question that you ask is, who do we serve? And this is that question about who are our customers. And I have been, I should stop being surprised. This often bollockses people up right from the get-go. There seems to be some confusion in organizations and programs and communities about who are we serving, right? And the confusion stems from, I think, real intense reliance on stakeholders versus the client. And so, and for your purposes, when you are serving a really big client of land, water, an entire system, again, that's above the line, it may be murky. So getting some real clarity about the actions that you're taking, who do they actually influence? Who are you intending to change the circumstances, the knowledge, the skills, the behaviors, et cetera? Those would typically be the clients. And circumstances fits into water and land, right? So what is their circumstance? They are happy, clean air and water and land, or they're not, right? So that maybe you may have a double thing going on.
Wait, I have a question about that. Like, do you mean this is people, or this is potentially fish? Like, is it?
It could
like,
be. It could be fish. It could be people. Okay. It could be both. But again, the distinction is, if it's your client, you're actually doing something with them. So it's and so it's probably not all the acreage in Vermont. It's the acreage that you're actually coming in contact with. You may have a goal of touching and impacting all the acreage, but not until you have the capacity to do that. Mm-hmm. So until you've actually done something to, with, or for them, they're not your client.
Gotcha.
They're a potential client. So they're above the line. The ones you actually touch are the ones that are your clients that you get to evaluate.
I remember when we talked about this last time, I had a really hard time with it for like a few days. I was like, who's our client?
So have you come up with an answer? I hope so.
Well, I think that it kind of goes back to the optics things. I think that there is a lot of opinions that our client is the environment, but the way in which we function and the programs we run are with farmers. But there are a lot of people and a lot of opinions that think our client should not be farms.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's like a narrative that we are fighting.
Yeah.
Almost.
And so this frame might help if you can claim that up above the result is that
this is what we're getting to.
Right.
Yeah.
And our strategy is to work with farmers, but so the result is the environmental impact, as well as economic impact.
But it's above where we're working.
Right. And and then you have to find some data points that assure people that you're covering that and you're considering it. But I would agree, if your programs are working with farmers, it's their acres, it's their practices that you're.
That's clarifying. I would think that, like, I think people not currently, but in the past, I've had this push of like, are your clients also, like you're saying, this is going to sound terrible, but to some level, like your funders, like the people, because you are often pushed to do something your funders are interested in, right? Even though you're serving your clients, and so you're like walking this balance line, which I felt more in the past than I do right now. But that is a pretty clear line. Like, it's not, but that's hard.
and it is hard, and it's how we get mission creep, right?
Yeah.
And in the course of that top conversation, if you're having conversation, your funders are at the table, and they should be, right? Because they have an interest, they have resources, bring them into the conversation. There may be a gap or a strategy that's identified, and there's no one else doing it. And then the conversation is, does this align with our mission? If it does, what would it take for us to take this on? It's not an immediate, it doesn't have to be an immediate no. I mean, as long as it's aligned with what the work is, and you find a way to capacity, make capacity for it. If it's important enough to bring to the table and it's promising enough, you may want to take it on, right? And you may say no. I mean, it's not exactly alignment. I think it's a better thing for you to do, right? And so but you have to have that conversation, and you have to have some criteria, and it can't be, oh, there's money. Mm-hmm. Which is how many of us have found ourselves in places 3 years later, like, oh my God, what am I going to do? The money is no longer here. And I have an entire team and staff and a community expectation, and the funder's gone. And it's not even lined up with our mission, right? That's a bad place to be. And that's when you have to you're trying to dump a program on someone else and hand it to someone else. That's always so pretty.
This is a screenshot out of state.
Exactly. All right. So the first question, I'm glad you've come up with your customer. So you come up with who do we serve? What do you do? And again, these are our various strategies. You might have multiples. You might have one thing. You might be wide and narrow, like wide and shallow, or narrow and deep. What are your strategies and why? Then we get to the performance measures, and there's 3 of them. How much did we do? How well are we doing it? And is anyone better off? And what I love about this is it doesn't take a PhD. Everybody in the community understands it. It's just lovely language, and it's meaningful, right? And it separates, again, into the importance, and we'll talk about how they're each a little different. Again, we ask who are the partners. And within an organization, there may be other people within the institution or other programs that can help you get your work done better. It might be someone external. Could be someone within the department who just has a better role to play. And then you do the same thing, you brainstorm. So if you look at your data on how much, how well, and is anyone better off, and you're baselining it and trending it, you have the same conversation about the turn the curve. Is this the direction we want to go into? Do we have the percentage of acreage across the state that we want? Are we working with the right number of people? Are we making inroads? Is the program making the change that we anticipated it was going to make? What are the farmers starting to implement these practices that we've been recommending that they do and are successful in it? And what's that trend line look like? What changed? Was it going up nicely and all of a sudden it took a tank? What's different now? What happened? Is it an environmental thing? Is it some new regulation? Is it beetles? What happened that shifted our numbers? So if based on that data, what could we do to shift and get better? What's our new ideas to get more inroad, more effective, better outcomes? And then from that brainstorm list, you pick what you can actually take on. And it's not all of it. It might be 1 or 2 or 3, but you keep that list. You keep a running history of all your great ideas, because to your point, there may be a few things that have to happen before you can get to that other thing. So you may have to set a path for how to prioritize it, and you want to keep that history so you can make it happen. All right. So that's the conversation and the process and the communication. And it's not a once and done. Like once you've started to identify the data, this becomes the basis for most of your conversations, most of your reporting, most of your communications to external funders or prospective funders. It's the stuff of your staff meetings and your board meetings. It's the stuff you take to legislature to say, here's some information you didn't know before you cut our funding. This becomes a premise and the basis for your budgeting even. So if you have a new idea that you're trying to figure, well, if you don't see it in your budget, it's not going to happen, right? So this becomes also the support for your budgeting process. So with that, how much time would you like for a break?